Ladies and gentlemen, got back from Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, I think they got something they want to say. I think they got something they want to say. Ladies and gentlemen, I think they got something they want to say. Washington, D.C. I think they got something they want to say.
Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, not your hearse, the liberal moderate, and I have my lovely co-host
Nora Yaya, the liberal lobbyist.
Hello. Everybody's very conservative in New York. Christopher Wright.
Yes, and we are the Politrix Podcast. Today is episode 32.
Ow, ow.
Yeah.
Hey.
Thank you, everyone, for listening and sharing the podcast and leaving comments. Please continue to share it with friends, family. Follow us on Politrix Podcast. On Instagram, we're Politrix Pod. Find us on YouTube. If you're listening to us, guess what? Or watching us right now, because we are officially on YouTube in the video form.
We in here.
Yeah, now we're gonna do.
Oh, we out here.
We've
for
been
my
saying we're
Southern
gonna.
folks, you know.
For 2020, we've been saying we're gonna do that and really start getting on our video stuff. So now we're on it, so you can see us and you can leave hopefully nice comments. But continue to listen, subscribe, leave a comment. And also, we're on every other platform: Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeart, Anchor, all that stuff. So today we have a special guest who's streaming in, as you can see, from Atlanta, Ash Cash, financial guru, I should say. You've seen him on like so many different things. I want to definitely extend it to you and let them know what you've been on and what you do.
No, for sure. So I am Ash Exantis, aka Ash Cash. I'm a financial educator, from New York City, who just believes that if you change your mindset, you can manage your money better. I've written 8 books. 4 of them have been bestsellers, and I've been on every platform you can think of, from Today Show to New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Yahoo Finance, Sway in the Morning.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been on a lot of things. I love to say that I'm Googleable, and so if you just Google Ash Cash, you'll see that I'm somebody that's passionate about finance, passionate about helping people live their best lives, and that's what I do day in, day out, is just help people change their mindset so they can live their life better.
Thank you.
That's great. Yeah. Isn't that awesome?
I'm excited to learn.
Yes, we're excited. So today we're going to have this episode. It's a financial empowerment episode for us. And we're really excited about this, and we're happy to have you.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me. I listen to the show as well.
Yes.
I really love it. And the reason why, I'm going to tell you real quick, right?
Sure.
The reason why I love this show is because I think that as a people, we've gotten away from, think about the family, right? Our family dynamic.
Right.
We don't all get along. Not that we don't get along. We don't all have the same opinions.
Right.
And so it's actually sort of like a pastime where your cousin thinks one thing, your other cousin thinks another thing. Yeah. And it's literally fun. You sit at the table, y'all argue all day,
right.
Then y'all go play basketball together.
That's right.
There you go. Thanksgiving dinner. That's all.
We haven't gotten to basketball yet, but we're
gonna get there.
Hopefully, we're gonna get there.
Y'all don't want none of that.
One day you have to shoot some hoops together.
One day.
I love the fact that we're doing that. Right. Because how do you learn? How do you learn? How do you grow if you don't listen to other perspectives? So I love what y'all doing.
That's right.
True
Thank you.
diversity.
I appreciate it. And you know what we thought? We thought that because the election season, people are so uninformed, especially our people, when it comes to politics. They don't know what, they're not paying attention. So we try to inform them on things that are going on a weekly basis and get them, hopefully excited about, voting in 2020.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For sure.
So, Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
How was everybody's holiday week? We haven't seen each other in a while.
It was great, man. I did some resting. I watched a lot of TV, which I never get to do. So I was so excited to lay on the couch. It was amazing.
Did you have any shows? Because I know you're in the stand-up.
I took about 10 days off, which was very difficult for me. But I just wanted to spend some time with my family, and I think that was important. And now it's back to the grind.
Okay, because today you have 2 shows,
I have 2 shows tonight, yes.
Oh, my gosh.
In Brooklyn. So it should be fun. It should be a good time.
Oh, wow. How about you, Chris? What was your, how have your last couple weeks been?
It was good.
Holidays?
Just chill with my sister pretty much, just me and her in the city. So we spent time here, then we went to Maryland, saw my dad, spent some time down there with him.
Good.
Yeah.
I haven't heard you say you were going to see your dad in a while.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen my dad in a while. So we had a lot of catching up to do, me and him. So, we've had our differences throughout the years, but we did a lot of catching up, and we had a lot of good talk, a good father and son moment, I guess.
Beautiful.
I did a walk and talk when I was down there, and a bunch of young black youth came up to me when I was talking, and they asked me a bunch of questions about conservatism. I schooled them, took a photo if you guys want to see it later on.
He loves schooling people. Oh, my God. How about you, Ash? How's your holidays been?
New Year.
No, it's pretty good. I actually was in New York, spending time with my sister and my nieces, and had my daughter with me. So it was good. Yeah, it was a first time in a long time where I kind of just sort of relaxed a little bit,
right.
and so I spent time in New York and had a decent time. It was emotional a little bit because my mom passed away last year.
Oh,
sorry to hear that.
So sorry.
Yeah, thank you. In March, and then her birthday is January 2nd.
Oh wow.
And so I had to. So I was in New York, spending time with family, but then also to pay homage to her. And so it was an emotional roller coaster, but I think for the most part it was a great time just being with family for sure.
Always. I mean, I think even me, like I spend time with my family. Christmas, New Year's, like I just spent time with family, friends. Like it was important to like just decompress from all like especially like media and everything that's like surrounding. Just needed time to like regroup, and now I'm like ready for this year. Like I feel like this year is gonna be so crazy. Like
it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, and I'm on this fitness journey. So Lord,
I'm on a fitness journey with you, sis. I have not had alcohol in 11 days.
Oh, me too.
I'm like, I'm getting my jawline back.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on. I'm trying to get a couple sizes down, so I'm working on it.
I'm doing sober January, no nothing for all since. It's been 13 days. I stopped a couple days before New Year's.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, so look at all of us. So we're going to celebrate it at the end. Hopefully, maybe we will start that basketball. Yeah. So you guys ready to politic?
Let's do it.
All right.
Always.
Awesome. Okay, so first topic. This is an interesting topic. It was an article that I read about the meridian wealth of Black and Latino families. They're saying that it could hit 0 by 2053. What do you guys think that people of color can do to fight the growing income inequality?
This is, I think, a sense of community. I said this prior many times, but just, building our sense of community, working together to get things done. Work for a Jewish company, and they showed me a lot when it comes to how they work together and how they support family, how they teach family a lot of things when it comes to money at a very young age. Mm-hmm. So, I think if we just kind of got together, brought that black father back in the house, definitely get things done.
Bring the black father back in the house can help change the meridian. You think that that's going to change
Who's the main worker in the household?
No, you know that. No. You started
early.
Just saying. Just put it out there.
No,
hey, y'all. If you a single mother, you ain't gonna get nothing.
Statistically, women, like the average worker, worker that used to be like the white man that is the blue collar worker. Now it's the black woman who's like average age of 35 and either has kids or is single or doesn't have any kids, but she's the one that's working. So that statistically
and then we're talking about them being broke in a few years. So what's that tell you?
Huh?
And we're talking about them being broke in 2053. So what does that tell you?
Well, there's a difference between broke and then wealth, right? So you can have a high income and still not have a wealth generating family, right? I think we have to be clear when we're talking about broke versus like wealth, right? Wealth is going to be at 0 by 2053. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something
and I think just to jump in real quick, because I'm like itching to jump in.
Yes, please.
I think that when we hear these narratives, we have to be clear of what's being said, right? Okay. And so they're saying the income inequality will lead to zero wealth by 2053. And I think that one doesn't have anything to do with the other, right? Okay. And I think that what happens is that too many times we've bought the narrative that wealth is built with income. And I think that what we need to understand is that wealth is built with ownership. Mm-hmm. And I think that in order for us to get to a space, to Chris's point, to get to a space where, us as Black people do not get to zero wealth in 2053 means that as we're earning income, no matter what the income is, we need to change our mindset from being only consumers to being owners, right? And we have to use that money to be able to buy things, build businesses. And honestly, I don't really think it matters who is earning it, right? Whether it's Black women that's earning it, whether it's Black men that's earning it, whether it's Black children that's earning it. Yeah. I think that as a community, we need to understand what other communities have understand, like the Jewish communities, like the Korean communities, like the Asian communities, like the, all the other communities that understand that collectively we're going to pull our monies together. And then we're going to own an industry. We're going to own, some type of business operation that now, that ownership in it is what's going to build wealth within those communities. And now when there's jobs to be passed around within what we own, that can stay within our community, opposed to us having to ask other communities for jobs because we don't own we don't own our own industries. We don't really own anything. So I think that's the key to making sure that Black wealth doesn't go down to zero by 2053 is now focusing on what are we doing with our money? Are we taking our money from an active perspective, meaning that we're working for money? And are we changing our relationship with money, right? That's what I teach. Change your relationship with money. Instead of money, you work hard for money. Money needs to work hard for you. And so if you don't come from a background that you have money, then that means that, okay, you're going to actively have to work for money. And so no matter where you fall on that spectrum, what are you doing with that money, right? I think it's $1.2 trillion. What are you doing with that money? Are you taking that money and now investing in things that you own, so that way that cycle of money stays within your community instead of just going one way?
Wow. Totally agree. And don't forget investing as well, because, the Dow just hit 29,000 for the first time in American history. So got to get that invest on.
Absolutely. No, definitely. Investing is a part of ownership, right?
We know what underlining when he says that. When he says that, he means
wink, wink, nod, nod.
Wink, wink. His president is
Okay. I think I would also add though that I think we have to vote to Chris's point, right? Who we elect, who we get in office are going to create policies that could be detrimental or beneficial to the Black community, right? So we need to be conscious of that, because please believe that all of these property issues that we're now dealing with were state and federal sanctioned laws where Black people could not own property. And so that set us back already. So I think for us, we also have to make sure that we're engaged in politics regardless of where you stand on the spectrum, so that you can make sure that some of these policies that they're implementing are going to definitely benefit our community. So I think we have to pay attention to that. Not just, the sound bites that people give, but like what are their actual platforms that are going to help us?
Yeah. Perfect. I love all these answers. We're going to just go to the next topic. So this is kind of I think you kind of touched upon this, Ash, on what you were talking about, the spending power. So this topic is about Black consumerism. I think this is like something we always hear this in I always hear this in different news stories, like Black consumers have their buying power so strong, So this is a question that I really think that we really need to kind of start talking about and actually definitively try to figure out what we're doing wrong as people individually, even us, what we should be doing. Okay, so Black consumers' spending power is at $1.2 trillion annually. I think you mentioned that. How can Black people change their relationship with money to benefit their community? Now, you talked about that a little bit about spending within our community, but I think we specifically practicalities. I think we need to kind of break down for people who are watching, listening, that they can start thinking about, especially the people of color, and even white people. You know what I mean? Like, what can we do on an individual basis that can start to help our community, specifically the Black people?
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a great question. And I think that, number one, it starts with recognizing what type of people exist in this world, right? And so, I always say there's 4 types of people. You have consumers, you have producers, you have investors, and you have philanthropists, right? And for the most part, in our community, we are just consumers. And so we make money and then we consume. And so because we're just making money and consuming, we're not putting money into like our intellectual property. We're not really producing at the level that we should be producing. We're not putting money into investing, whether it's real estate, whether it's stocks and bonds, whether it's investing in other businesses within our community. But then also from a philanthropy standpoint, we're not giving back, right, to those institutions that supported us, that we want to see more of, and we want to see more things done. And so I think that with that $1.2 trillion spending power, we have to start funneling some of that money into the other 3 parts, not just being consumers. And there's nothing wrong with being a consumer, because that's how money is supposed to cycle, right? There's a cycle of money. Right. And so you're supposed to circulate your money. And so you have to consume, but you also have to produce, you also have to invest, and you also have to give back. I mean, I think that's how we do it. I think that.
What about buying black? What about buying black? Like that whole that's like a term of.
Yeah, I think
what does that mean?
That's skewed in a way, right? Okay. I think that I don't like the generalization of that, right? Because as we understand the narrative, right? Not all skin folk is your kin folk, right?
Straight up.
And so just because somebody is black or somebody has a business does not mean that they are focusing on the needs and wants of the Black community.
And definitely not that philanthropy part. And
on the opposite side, just because somebody's not Black doesn't mean that they do not support the Black community either.
Right.
And so
this is what I meant. I wanted to hear this. This is good.
and so I don't really buy into the buy Black narrative because it's too general.
It's too general.
It means that if you have a business and you are Black, if you want to support the Black community, you should buy that. You should buy into that business.
Right.
But that doesn't serve the community. And I think what serves the community is being informed, right? And so I think that what needs to happen is that you need to focus your dollar on what are those businesses that you can support that supports the community, right? And it could be. So I'll give you a prime example.
Yeah,
and so
give us an example.
when I lived in New York, I lived in Westchester County. I lived in New Rochelle.
Oh wow!
And a few, I would always go to the Target that's in Mount Vernon, right, right on Sanford Boulevard.
Right.
Every time I go to Target, 98% of the employees were Black people from my community, right, from Mount Vernon, and they got those jobs. So I loved working, or I loved spending my money at that Target because I was supporting my community. If I stopped spending money at Target, that specific Target, then business will slow down, and all those young people from Mount Vernon who look like me, who need that job for a start, would not have a job. And so for me, that's me putting money back into my community.
Right.
But Target is not a Black-owned business.
Right.
And so I think that that's the consciousness that we need to have. We need to investigate more. Okay, great. You're a Black business. Okay, I want to give you my money, but what are you doing within the community? Who are you employing? Right? Are you employing the community? Are you giving back to the community? What is it about your business that what is it about your business that makes this good for my community? If I'm from Harlem and you open up a business in Harlem and it's a Black business, but you live in New Rochelle, around, people who are not Black, and now me supporting your business, you're not hiring people from Harlem, you're not doing anything in Harlem, and you might be Black, but you might, go to the country club up in New Rochelle and you drive a Mercedes Benz that you bought from a white dealership. Then how is that money circulating back into the community because I'm buying Black? And so in short, I just think that, don't just follow these blanket narratives. do some investigation and make sure that not only the intention is good, but in practicality, what is that business doing for your community and how is it pushing your community forward?
Amen.
I definitely agree.
We all agree.
Yeah. That was awesome. That was awesome. Okay. I mean, I do want to, I do think that we do need to exercise a little bit more like support with like, now specifically with my line of work, I work in the music business. So for me, I do think that we need to support more people of color. I think that that's important too, specifically when hiring practices. I think we should always, try to give opportunities to people who look like us, right? And not just, give them, give the Jewish person the job, the Italian person the job, just because they feel like, oh, that person has, that person seems like they could do it better. When, I remember hearing something where they said like directors or screenwriters, they like to hire white people more than black people. And the reason is because they have more skills. And then, the person that they were also said the rebuttal was, well, if we don't give black people a chance to get those skills, to train, to become more, to learn how to become a better cinematographer, to make better movies, then how will we ever be able to get those how will we ever be able to get into the space and do proper work, right? Because people say, oh, Tyler Perry, oh, his stuff is horrible. But when you think about it, he's giving so many jobs. That's practicality. That's learning. So they're increasing their skills. They're building so that like now
Ava too.
Right. Ava now can make Oscar-winning stuff because she has the people around her that she's giving the opportunity to do so.
And opportunities to direct. I mean, in that industry for sure. I would say in every industry.
I think every industry,
honestly. Political. But I do think we're starting to move a little bit closer to, at least as Black people, like seeing each other as equal and understanding that we have the same skill sets. I remember one commissioner of a city agency in New York City got a lot of flack because they said that she was just hiring people of color. But she said, actually, what I did was required a master's degree. And that meant that a lot of people could no longer have this job, but all these people of color have these master's degrees and they're actually well suited and skill set for this job. So I think it's, the narrative has shifted from, Black people needing all these different sort of ways to help them get on our level. They're there. They just need the opportunity oftentimes. Right.
And I think I always hear that white people feel like, well, just hire the right person. It shouldn't be about the color, it shouldn't be about the race. And I get that. I agree. I mean, the moment it becomes, here's how it should be. America is split. Black people make up 15 or is it 12? 13% of this country. So when you look at your workforce, when you look at your office and you see that there's zero white Black people there, then you should say to yourself, well, why is that? If you're a white person, you should say, well, why don't we have a little bit more diversity?
Right.
That's something that you should start thinking about when you're at work and when you see that 13% of your workforce is Black, then you know that it's an even playing field.
And I would also encourage everyone to sit on boards. I think that is just so important, right? Because you can influence how decisions are made, policies, whether it's for a nonprofit or a for-profit. Like, get in the room, sit at the board, sit at the table, use your time. If you don't have the money necessarily to be I guess get involved in philanthropy, you do have the time where you can at least sit on the board and kind of get engaged in these rooms because decisions are being made and we're just not at the table. And it's not for them, it is for a lack of trying on a lot of these businesses. But we also need to kind of be proactive in that way.
I mean, we briefly talked about affirmative action, and I think some people's stance on I think your stance on affirmative action was what is it?
Not good with it.
You're not good with it.
No.
And when you think about affirmative action in practice, first of all, in practice, it doesn't even really help Black people. It actually helps white women more. I
wouldn't say it doesn't help Black people. It just helps white women more.
Okay, so that's what I mean. In practice, it helps white women more. But the idea of it and the concept of it was established because there were, if not a chance, if John F. Kennedy didn't say, like, we need to create an opportunity for people of color to get jobs or get an education, they just wouldn't. We wouldn't have the opportunity. Yeah. We literally wouldn't. Yeah, even to this day.
Well, but we got other minorities at this point getting overlooked by affirmative action. We got a lot of Asians getting overlooked and bypassed, and that's technically a minority group.
Right.
So that's why I feel.
So that's why you think there's an inequality.
It's past its time. For its time when it came out, yeah, we get it. But at this time, 2020, it's time to move on.
So do you think it's
So here's my only thing about that, right? Is that I think when it comes to Black people, there are initiatives that to try to right the wrongs, but the wrongs are never righted. If that if that makes sense, and then before those rights or those wrongs are righted, we're now saying, okay, now it's time to move on, right? And so when we think about systemically, you really can't compare what people of color have been through in this country to an Asian, to a white woman, right? Like literally, there has been laws on the books. Like government sanctioned laws that stop Black and brown people from creating wealth, right? And because of those, there's this, that's why there's this disparity. And so part of what I feel like affirmative action does is kind of, tries to make the level, level out the playing field. And so I do think that there is a purpose for affirmative action, and then affirmative action still could be an effective tool. But it's the same thing about like buying Black. I just don't like the generalization of minority, right? Because we just go through different things. And so I think that, is this practical? I don't know. But I think that there should be a certain set of rules for white women, certain set of rules for, for like Asian minorities, certain set of rules for people of color, because we all, even though we're minorities, we have all been through different things. You can't just put us all in a pot and say, you're a minority, so let's equal it out. There are specific things that we have gone through as Black people that we do need the opportunity, right? I'm not saying, give out the jobs to people who are unqualified.
It sounds like you're talking about reparations.
not reparations, not reparations in the sense of money.
Traditional sense, yeah.
I think giving. I mean, we know the facts, right? The facts are. If you take a lottery winner and you give them $1 million or you give them millions of dollars, they're going to lose it in 5 years, right? And so I don't think so, especially as a financial educator, I think it's the worst thing ever to cut a check, like physically give money to people who don't know how to manage money. Right. And so from a reparation perspective, I'm not even for.
But to your point about general statements and blanket statements, I think that's the problem, is that people think so black and white with reparations. They think about a check. But there are so many different forms and ways and policies that can be implemented that could also be considered a form of reparations. Right.
Agreed,
and so,
agreed.
I don't think that we can deny the history of this country and how it was created and why we are the superpower that we are and how we grew so fast. It was on the backs of black people, period.
Right.
So,
Asians too.
And Asians, they built the railroads and they had concentration camps in this country.
And they got kicked out.
Absolutely. And so we should talk about, but see, this is my thing. It's like, if we're talking about reparations for black people, then that means that Asians are going to get, pushed aside. No, we should be talking about reparations on how to fix this for all communities that help build this country. Right. And so I think we have to be a little bit more creative in our approach. Like you said, there were federal state sanctioned laws in HUD that wouldn't allow you to even have black people in your community. Right. So maybe it's the conversation that I know we talked about before, where banks are giving, a little bit more generous loans. Maybe there are financial aid classes. Maybe there is something that could be implemented to make sure that black people have a fighting and fair chance in this country, given the history.
I agree with that.
Right. All right. Well, let's get to the next topic because we have a few topics more I would like to try to get into. This is about the president. Are there any policies that President Trump has done to benefit people of color financially that you feel is benefiting black people specifically?
Yeah. I think that yes. I think that when we think about I'll talk, right, because I'm looking at your poster of the great Nip. I'm looking at your poster of the great Nipsey Hussle, right?
Yeah.
I wrote a book called Hustlenomics that talks about Nipsey Hussle, right?
We got to get that. We got to get that.
And I think that a lot of times when people start to, I don't like emotional politics, right? Where people are just being emotional and they just not looking at the facts. And so the facts of the matter is that, right? And the facts of the matter is that when you look at what Nipsey was doing with opportunity zones, that's a thing, right? We're always talking about opportunity zones, which specifically target inner city neighborhoods and giving opportunity for those neighborhoods to thrive, which are mainly Black and brown. I think that that's something that is a benefit to Black people that was ushered and set up by this president's administration. And so I do think that is a policy that is beneficial. I think that's one of them.
So real quick on opportunity zones, just to be clear though, you can still manipulate the system, because in New York, so Hudson Yards, that fancy new building that they created with all these high-end stores, that actually benefited from opportunity zones because it's still in an inner city neighborhood, although it's all the way on the west side in one of the more richer neighborhoods.
Yes.
But because it's such a concentration of poverty, you have those pockets of poverty in these neighborhoods, they were still able to, benefit. Right. Yeah. So,
Right.
Shout out to Cuomo.
And that's actually a great point, right? Because, that's a great point. Because
that was your president. That's your president's opportunity zone.
Right.
You govern your states, though.
But that's a great point, because when you think about why it's important, like why your show is important, why having these conversations are important, because the other thing about opportunity is that you have to take advantage of the opportunity within the lifetime of the opportunity, right? Which means what? Which means that if we are only focusing on the negative side of what is being done and not realizing that right in our faces, right? And so there's a lot of people who are like, they hate Trump, they hate everything that he does, to the point where there might be something that's being done that benefits you, but because you hate him or whatever the case may be, you're not looking into those opportunities. So I agree that it can be manipulated, but in the same breath, we have to be informed and understand how it works so we can use it to our favor as well.
Agreed.
Very true. Very true. Also, donating record numbers to HBCUs. Go get your degrees.
I agree with that as well.
I mean, the federal government always has to.
But now he's doing record numbers.
He increased it.
More than any president in American history.
He increased it. I mean,
more than any president.
I mean, there's more people going to HBCUs. He increased it. I mean, it's not.
We'll give credit where credit's due.
Okay. I mean, thank you for doing that, because we want to continue to educate our people, our Black people. So, all right. So let's get to this. Let's go.
Yeah,
to the
I got nothing.
You got nothing. I'm not even adding to the whole. Honestly, the only thing I can say is for Democrats, pay attention. That's all I'm going to say, is that, we have to do more, than it.
I mean, I want to be educated, though. I want someone to come to me with the list of all the ways that this president has really benefited people of color, and not just from, this sort of big pie in the sky, the economy's doing great, really direct policies. So I'm just waiting for that.
Right.
Yeah. And also, and just to be fair, when we think about what the role this administration has had in some of the prison reform laws,
First Step Back,
I think directly benefit
First Step Back is huge.
The Black community as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And then financially, because now, if we're if we're back in the households, and now we could participate in the economy of our community. So that's another thing.
I will say that this president is doing more for Black people than any other Republican president that I can remember in my lifetime. I can say that. I will say that to his credit.
What about Democrats?
Oh, I mean, there's tons of Democrats that have done things for more
people. Than President Trump. Who are these Democrats?
More. I mean, we can talk about Bill Clinton.
3-strike law. He put more blacks in prison than any president in American history.
Absolutely, but that was a criminal justice policy that he needed to, that Black clergymen requested. I mean, we talk about this all the time. So that to me, I can keep.
Chris just set you up. That was a honeypot, girl. You're supposed to move on to the next topic.
Yeah, we're moving on. Okay, but we will have a conversation about that. Though
we will talk about that.
I do want to have a conversation about Democrats. Help
Democrat president versus Republican president,
and how they've
helped people of color. Yes.
We will have a conversation.
We should have an episode.
We'll have, and then we'll have an informed conversation too.
Yes.
So let's have that. But I do think that the Republican president that is currently here has started to show more interest in supporting the people. I mean, Bush has done crap for black people, so I can say that without anything. So I'm going to play a clip from an interview for this next topic, but first let me just kind of introduce it to you guys. So billionaire Byron Allen discussed on The Breakfast Club that he wanted to get economic inclusion for people of color. He discussed his ask for President Obama to audit banks to see if they were lending black people money. He also mentioned that the U.S. government worker pension fund let me just play you before I just kind of reiterate what it is.
Talk a little bit about that. And this was something that, I started supporting Senator Obama long before Black America or anybody knew his name, right? Because he came to folks who had the capital to support. I was happy to support. And after he became president, I said, I'm not any different than anybody else. I have an agenda. My agenda is that I want for all Americans to have equal access to capital and opportunity, especially African Americans, the furthest left behind. So I said, I have two asks of you. I said, you just spent $700 billion to bail out the banks. And I want you to audit the banks and see if they're lending money to black people. Not minorities, black people. Because minorities, that's defined as white women.
Yes.
And the new minorities, gay white men. But if you actually say, I'm going to audit you to see if you're lending money to black people, Negroes, whichever decade you want to go to, you're going to see that we're not getting access to capital. And at that point, I had seen the data that unemployment under Obama's administration, unemployment for black America had gone up and had gone down for white America, and home ownership had hit a 25-year low. So I said that audit will send a very clear message to the banks to start lending money to black folks, and they'll start digging black people up out of graves and lending money to maintain their good standing with the United States government.
So
and
you got a loan?
No. So
Okay.
I went to him, and that was the other thing. And I said, listen, the other thing I want you to do is just understand that the United States government has over $1 trillion pension fund, over a T, government worker pension fund money. People who work for the government, over $1 trillion. Not one penny of that is managed by African Americans.
Wow.
And I just need you to make sure that, maybe $150 billion is in the hands of qualified African American money managers, because that's going to be invested in African American entrepreneurs in our communities, and that will create jobs in our community, and we can start to address the economic genocide by making sure you don't have access to a proper education, making sure you don't have access to capital. That equals genocide. I'm going to squeeze you out. I'm going to take the oxygen out of the room. I'm going to position you to fail. You don't have a proper education. You don't have access to capital that's not predatory. You don't have opportunities. So I said those two things will change the game. Just notify the banks. I'm going to give you a report card on black people and carving out about $150 billion of government worker pension fund money, a lot of it coming from people of color. And that did not happen, but that was my ask.
You sounded like Barack just now.
So this is a billionaire, Byron Allen. I think he's one of the greatest people right now speaking about the inequalities of the Black community, specifically when it comes to financial wealth. And he went on to say that President Obama was unable to deliver, and that, you know, we as a people were not clear on our ask and did not hold him accountable. So my question is, do you think people of color need to hold up their elected officials to make them more accountable to their community? If so, what are the issues affecting people of color that we need to get politicians to advocate for?
I think that's Sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. No,
I mean, it's a lot. There was a lot in that, but
I would like to talk about what he was actually saying,
please.
Too.
Okay.
And just that we do need policy. I love the bank idea of a report card out on, you know, how we are supporting Black communities in particular, just because I feel like if you can have a policy and a law that excludes Black people, you can have a policy and a law that then includes exclusively Black people. And I think that we need to be more comfortable with that conversation and not see it as a handout, but see it as a means of justice given the history of this country and Black people. So I think what he's saying is 1,000% accurate. I would love to see it. And it doesn't, he didn't even attach anything with it. Just he wants to see what banks are doing.
Okay, what bank is giving. But what about there's another thing that he talked about, the $1 trillion pension fund that is heavily funded by Black people. Okay?
Yeah.
Like a lot of people that work for the government are Black. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And hello, now
in fact, the government is the largest employer of Black people, period.
There you go. Okay.
Period.
You see that?
Right? So the government is the largest employer of Black people, and then the second largest employer of Black people are Black and brown businesses.
Okay. So now how come there aren't any business managers, qualified business managers who went to Harvard, who went to UPenn, who went to great schools, who can manage at least a quarter of it? Not even a quarter, even 15% of it. He's asking for $150 billion of it to be managed by Black business money managers. How come that's not happening? And how come President Trump, the greatest president in the history, hasn't started to include that? Because that's real. I mean, if we're going to talk about how
Obama didn't either.
Yeah,
to be fair,
I was about to say.
To be fair,
like I said, Black unemployment was going up under Obama, and now it's at the lowest it's ever been in American history under Trump. So I just want to throw that out there real quick.
Well, all I can say is this. I mean, I think that I keep walking myself into these things.
You do. I'm just about facts. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so that is how I operate.
And I also think that, I think to Obama's defense, I do know that for him, like, he's a Black man. You can't tell me that this man was just sitting there like, I don't want to help Black people. Like, the thing with him is that, like we always say, he's the George Washington of presidents for Black people. And they already thought when he got there that he was going to do barbecues in the front and he was going to have
he did.
Okay,
they had hip hop, galas and dinners.
Right.
Jay-Z and Beyonce were there every other week.
But he didn't have Congress, so he couldn't move anything anyways.
Thank you. Please. And they didn't want him. They were shutting him down completely. So imagine him saying, "Okay, guys, we're going to give 150."
Let's hear.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. What I was going to say is also when we focus on what Byron Allen was saying, we can't miss that. We can't miss that there wasn't a clear ask from our people as well. Right?
There it is.
What happens too is that a lot of us were okay with the symbolism, right? Like, we got a Black man as president. But there wasn't a specific ask. And so me as a financial educator, I teach this all the time. You can't say, I want to save more money. No, you have to be specific, right? How much money, by when? Like, you have to be really specific if you want that goal to be achieved. And that's with any goal. Right. And I think that was the issue. I don't think the issue was, I think there were other issues. So all the other issues are valid, but also there was not a specific ask. And to that point, because when Byron Allen started talking about the audits of the banks and the money that's being managed in this government pension fund, that was the first time I heard it when I listened to the interview. And I said, you know what? He has a point. But now what? Can there be a specific ask? Can there be a coalition that's put together? Like what action steps can we take now that we know this information to start to move the needle in that opposite direction? And I think That's what we need.
Hey guys, Nora here with a special message for our listeners. I want to thank you for listening to Politics Podcast and wanted to share an exciting offer to entrepreneurs and supporters. We are now offering businesses the opportunity to be advertised on our show during this mid-roll. If you are interested, please email politricspod@gmail.com. We are also taking support from our listeners through Anchor app. Just click the support this podcast button and you can give whatever you want. You can also join us on Patreon, look for Politics Podcast, and donate what you can. With your funding, you will help us to increase our video production, post more content, and start marketing and advertising our podcast. We appreciate you always, and please continue, please continue to listen to the show. And we're back. And so I just wanted Ash Cash to kind of give us a breakdown for our listeners of what a pension is, and then why it's so important to have an African-American Black person money manager kind of having a percentage of this and managing the pension.
No, absolutely. That's a great question. And so when you think about a pension, right? So when someone works for a company and the company decides to take a portion or put a portion of money aside for that person so that when they retire, they'll have money that they can use to retire from. That's what a pension is. And so with government, when you work a government job, there's certain rules. So like if you work a certain amount of years, every year that you work based on what your income is, there's money set aside that's going to be put in a fund for you. Mm-hmm. And that fund, that money you're going to get when you retire. What happens with what money managers do is now these money managers have access to all of this money, and they take that money, and as a fiduciary of that money, their goal and their objective is to invest that money in things that will help that money grow. So that way, when that person retires, that money that money is maximized so that they could, really be able to, live off of that money. But what also happens, too, is that now when you think about the people who are controlling that fund now have the power to begin to fund and put money into projects that they believe in, projects that they think will make money, projects that they believe that will grow, companies,
benefit
stocks,
communities,
bonds, whatever it is. Right. And so,
i.e. The Irishman, if anyone watched that film,
exactly.
Jimmy Hoffa, that's a great example. Yeah.
That's actually exactly what it is.
Okay. Good.
Exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. If you saw The Irishman, then that's exactly what it is.
That's where he was getting his money from, the pension, right, from the auto workers.
Right. So when you think about the fact that these trillions of dollars are coming from the Black community, because it's the majority of the Black workers who are generating, this money is set aside for the decisions to how that money is going to grow, but also the money is being funneled into other communities that may not benefit the Black community. And so that's why when, Byron Allen talks about, getting Black money managers, even if it's $150 billion, imagine that a Black money manager has $150 billion that they could now have the decision to fund other businesses, to fund projects and things of that nature. Right. So that's why that's important for sure.
I think about that African-American, oh gosh, now I can't remember his name, Mayor, do you remember the mayor that we talked about, the Atlanta, Georgia mayor that when he got into office in the 70s, he was, or the 80s, he was the person that utilized Black businesses to, so they realized that they had to create the airport, and he said to himself, okay, we need someone to put the roads down. And he says, I know some people, Black people know how to put pavement and cement down. I'm going to use Black construction people to do the pavement, and that helped the businesses in the Black community because that was so many people that had jobs. So this is these are like small examples of how I feel like if we're not even including the Black people into these big when these opportunities come up around, we're not going to be able to have a piece of the pie, at all.
No, and I think that's where diversity is important because your interests are different, your relationships are different, your exposure is different. So having a Black person manage a portion of those funds, the interest there, the understanding is going to be different. So I do think that that's something that's critical and we should be paying attention to. But again, to the earlier point, when Obama became president and got in office, it was emotional. It was symbolic, right? And we didn't hold him up. Then I swear I didn't know if he was the Antichrist. It was a little scary. Everyone was screaming and singing Obama. I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this before.
Celebrated.
But what is your platform though, sir? And so I think we have to, as people, like, we can't just get excited anymore. We have to be more strategic and hold them to a standard and really ask and push, like, how are you going to benefit us, period.
Well,
I held Obama to a standard.
To this point of what Chris was saying about President Bill Clinton, the black clergy they rallied together and they went to their Congress, their senators, they went to the president, and they said, listen, we need your help in our communities. People are killing our kids. Our kids can't go to school. The drugs are horrible. We need your help. Can you help us? So these are ways that the community is accountable. Now, was that like in hindsight, they went a little too extreme with the bill, but these are the type of things that if us as black people, we started saying, all right, so this is something, what Byron Allen, let's action this out. Let's actionize this. Let's get all the black, intelligent business managers and all these great attorneys, and let's go into this this next election and say to our Democratic candidates, here's what we need. We need access. We need access to funding, specifically these pensions, this pension, at least a portion of it, where we can start investing this into our communities.
Right.
All right. So next topic, guys. I'm going to try to squeeze in one more topic. 2020 is upon us. Yay. What can the average person, and this is really for you, Ash, what can the average person who makes $30,000 a year working a 9-to-5 job do to build his or her own wealth?
Yeah, so I think immediately, I talked about this earlier, but I'll dive in deeper. Okay. There has to be a change in relationship with money. I think that people put I only make $30,000, so I don't make enough, and so I'm only going to do what I can do within that $30,000. But I think that what happens is that we cannot only be consumers. We have to produce, we have to invest, we have to give back. And so I think that someone who makes $30,000 has to change that mindset and say, first of all, you have to create a financial freedom fund. I used to call it an emergency fund, but I do understand that words have power. And so we're not calling any emergencies into our lives. And so that's why I call it a financial freedom fund. But I believe that everybody should have at least 6 to 8 months of expenses in an account based on what they make, right? And so if you make $30,000 a year and your expenses are $1,000 per month, then you should have liquid, meaning that you have access to it, at least $6,000 to $8,000 in an account for your financial freedom. And so I would start there. I would say that they need to put a percentage aside that anytime money comes in, that they take that money off the top and now they put it in a savings account. And I'm not saying pay all your bills first and then you figure it out. I'm saying take yours off the top. Do what FICA does. I don't know who FICA is, but she takes her money first. She does, right? She don't let you see it. She take her money and then you budget whatever's left over, right? And so I say, treat yourself like FICA. Take the 10% if that's what your number is. Put that aside and then start building that financial freedom fund from there. Because when you think about it, then is that you could afford 10%, and then that 10% adds up. It adds up, and then now you start having this pool of money that you can start putting into producing some stuff. You can start investing in yourself, investing in businesses, investing in the stock market. You can start giving back to the institutions that you want, that support your community. So I think it starts with people understanding that in order to create financial freedom, you cannot only be a consumer, that you also have to produce, invest, and give back.
Okay. Do you think any of these Democratic candidates have any policies that are beneficial to us? Are there anything that
to anybody?
Yeah, I think right now, no. I think right now, I haven't seen anything specific yet. But I also understand, it's sort of one of these things that is very complicated because they're running for presidency of the United States of America, right? And so what we have to do is sort of put ourselves in that shoe, right? So let's say, for instance, there was an Asian person running for president of the United States.
There is. But, Andrew Yang.
No, there is. No, there is. But what I was going to say was, so imagine if Andrew, I didn't want to use him specifically, but I wanted to keep it general. But imagine if Andrew Yang said, you know what? Asians built the railroad system, right? And so we're going, I'm going to be for America, but I'm also going to make sure that the Asians who built the railroad system are compensated for it. I don't know if us as Black people, I don't know if white people would really receive that message. And so I do understand that as a lot of the Democrats are running, they're potentially not being as specific to what they want to do or what they can do or what they will do. So right now, I don't hear anything that I would say, yes, this is going to specifically help the Black community. But I do hope that once we get to the primaries, once we start really, narrowing down who the candidates are, there are some specific things that are being said. But I also hope that us as a Black community, we start to be specific about what our asks, what is it that we actually want as well.
I agree. I think that Elizabeth Warren does have some policies, although not specifically for Black people. I think her student loan debt relief will impact Black people extremely. 77% of African Americans take out federal loans so they can complete their college education. And I think that if 3/4 of our loans were forgiven, then that would free up some of this money so we can have that 4-prong approach that you talked about, being able to invest, save, and get that 10% off the top. I know as someone who is in 6 figures of debt, hallelujah, that if 3/4 of that was forgiven, Lord, I would be able to do so much more, okay? So I think that while it's an indirect benefit, it is something that I've seen that I know would benefit Black people in a way that I haven't heard other candidates really propose. So shout out to her.
Okay, I'm just gonna say, because
she's Yang Gang.
I'm gonna say that the freedom dividend is something that I do think that we need to pay attention to. Martin Luther King advocated for it.
Yes,
and I do believe that it may not help specifically only Black people, because like you just said about the railroads, like we can't just exclude everybody. But I do think that this can help everybody by also helping Black people as well. It would also change the income, the poverty income to 12,000. That means that we wouldn't be at zero now. We'd be at 12,000. I just think that it's something that people should pay attention to. $1,000 a month is not going to change your life, but it is going to be helpful to, like she said, paying off your student loans. $1,000 can help you pay off student loans faster. $1,000 can help you start a business. $1,000 can help you, start, pick up your kids, put your kids in daycare so you can work more. Like whatever the case is, money in your pocket, changing the economy, trickle up. I think that's something that can benefit.
Yeah, so we also got to be aware to be careful of the spending as well, because what comes more spending comes higher taxes, and Blacks don't need higher taxes at this moment, in my opinion.
Agreed. All right. Well, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's one thing actually that's coming up that I just wanted to shed light on. Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, the holiday is coming up. So I just wanted to have us just kind of think about, is there anything that do you think that Dr. Martin Luther King would be, happy or proud of the advances for Black people? How do you think he would think of us right now, after his dream speech almost 60 years ago?
I think he'd be proud of this conversation.
Absolutely.
I don't know if he would necessarily be proud of the state in which we operate right now, because, I think part of the reason why he was assassinated, obviously, was because he started moving away from sort of this race baiting and really talking about what we need to do as people to close this income gap, inequality, wealth gap. And I don't think it's only grown. Right? There's only the haves and the have-nots. There are no have-mores and haves anymore. It's just so drastic. So I think that we've moved away from some of that, and we've grown emotional, and we've become more kind of extreme in our viewpoints. And I hope that we can start to grow closer to that. I think this podcast is a great example of that sort of conversation. But generally, the country is in a state of turmoil.
Yeah, I think he would be upset with the identity politics that we are playing right now. The fact that we have blacks in here in Brooklyn beating up Jewish people for no reason, I know he would be proud of that. So we need to get away from the identity politics. And like you said, all black brothers, white brothers, everybody put their hands together. Let's work together. Let's get things done. I think we need to get focused back on that. And that's what America's about as well. So,
Ash, did you have any?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that definitely the conversations that we're having now, he would be proud of. I think that now that we, I think that now that we have more access to information and access to, creating our own economies, whether it's through technology, whether it's, through what we can produce, I think that if you couple the conversations with what we can actually do from a tangible standpoint, that we're moving in the right direction. I do think that because, in the work that I do a lot, there is a lot of talk about ownership and maybe not in politics, but in other arenas, the barriers of entry have been lowered, where we do have a lot of opportunity to build wealth. And I think that if we continue those conversations on how to build wealth, plus using the practical tools that we have in order to move in that direction, that we could help realize his real dream, which wasn't only about civil rights, to your point, it was civil rights. It was really about, income and ownership. And so I think that if he were alive now and he would see, yes, there's some spaces in which we move back some. But if we focus on what we have today, we are positioned in a good space to build wealth and to move the income or the wealth gap in the right direction.
All right.
God bless America.
And we'll end right there. Thank you for listening to Politics Podcast. Thank you for Ash Cash for joining us.
Woo-hoo.
You were amazing.
Thank you
so much. If you enjoy this podcast, please hit subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know which topics you want us to hear and talk about next. You can email us at politrixpod@gmail.com. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Awesome.
And we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kirsten D on Instagram.
I'm at Miss Yaya on Instagram.
Christopher Wright, Google.
Okay.
And I am Ash Cash on Instagram.
Ash, do you have anything else? Any other things coming up? Anything that we can tune into, or any talks that we can check you? Are you going to be out in New York anytime soon?
I'll be in New York March 21st for a conference. I am doing some diversity and inclusion work with Facebook, which is really good. So I'm trying to help them get their lives together.
I love that.
So that'll be good. But right now I'm just focusing on helping people build their brands. And so if my website iamashcash.com, or if you go to mindrightmoney.com, I have a lot of online courses that I'm teaching people how to create multiple streams of income and create build generational wealth.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Happy MLK, everyone.
Happy MLK. Have a good one, guys.
Peace.
Bye.
Peace.
Thank you so much, Ash. Appreciate you.
No, it's my pleasure. Hey,
you.
Chris, thank you for taking it easy on me, man.
We need to do more.
I was more nervous about you. I was like, I don't know. Are we going to spar on this trumping? But I appreciate you, brother.
Nah, man. Nah, I got you, brother. This is your realm, man. We're going to let you do your thing, man.
Right.
They ain't going to try to...
Nah, I appreciate you, man.
It's too early for him right now, about 7 p.m. No.
You get him on a good...
So the timing was good. The timing was
good.
on my side.
That's right. right.
And I'll be reaching out to you, Ash. I need to build my wealth. So shout out to you.
No, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, anything you
Follow
need.
Him on Instagram, guys.
I will.
Follow him on Instagram.
Definitely, I will.
What's your Instagram?
I am Ash Cash.
I am Ash Cash. Yeah, follow him on Instagram. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Have a good one.
Have a good Saturday.
All right, take care.
Take care.
Bye.
All right,
brother.
thanks.
Back from Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, I think they got something they want to say. I think they got something they want to say. Ladies and gentlemen, I think they got something they want to say. I think they got something they want to say.